So if you haven't heard what happened, a female police officer named Amber Geiger was recently sentenced to 10 years in prison for a crime that she committed last year. And basically what happened is that she came home from work and apparently went into the wrong apartment, and she saw a man who lived in the apartment and she shot him to death, thinking that he was in her apartment. Now, a few days ago, she was sentenced to the 10 years in prison for it, and the victim's brother was allowed to give a victim impact statement in which he said the following to her.
I can speak for myself. I forgive you, and I know if you go to God and ask Him, He will forgive you. And I don't think anyone could say it. Again, I'm speaking for myself, not even bad for my family. But I love you just like anyone else. And I'm not gonna say I hope you rot and die just like my brother did, but I personally want the best for you. And I wasn't gonna ever say this in front of my family or anyone, but I don't even want you to go to jail. I want the best for you, because I know that's exactly what both of them would want you to do. And the best would be give your life to Christ. I'm not gonna say anything else. I think giving your life to Christ would be the best thing that both of them would want you to do. Again, I love you as a person, and I don't wish anything bad on you. I don't know if this is possible, but can I give her a hug, please? Please?
Yes.
Now, most of us hear a story like this and think that would be incredibly hard to do. How could someone forgive the person who just murdered their brother? People had similar questions after the Charleston shooting, when a person stormed into a church and killed family members of the church, and the surviving family members forgave the shooter. And the same thing happened when a man broke up with his girlfriend. He killed a man who was a father and also a grandfather just to feel like he was getting back at his ex-girlfriend. Again, the families of the victim forgave the killer and pointed the killer to Christ. Now, as C.S. Lewis said, forgiveness is a great idea until you have something to forgive. And that's a true statement. Now, I know that each of us can think to that one person who we find just the hardest to forgive, and then it becomes clear just how hard forgiveness can be. Now, I want you to think about that person, and with that person in mind, I'm going to explain why, no matter what you believe, you need to forgive that person, the person who hurt you and wronged you the worst. Now, the first reason for this is simple. If you don't forgive that person, they'll have a hold on you, and they'll always own a part of you in some sense. That part of you that refuses to forgive them, they'll control and own that part of you until you forgive them. The anger and resentment that we hold aside will affect us and continue to bring us pain, sadness, bitterness, or anger. When we don't forgive, it might not even hurt that other person. They might have moved on and forgotten all about it. And if that happens, then the only person that's still affected by it is you. But if we're able to finally get that revenge and we're able to hurt them, then we only find ourselves hating that person more rather than loving them more. Even if we did find relief from inflicting revenge, it changes our hearts into something more hateful and twisted, consistently needing revenge. And this isn't just bad for our minds, but it's also bad for our health. When we forgive, we choose to pay that emotional cost ourselves. Each time we decide not to take revenge, each time we don't say something bad about that person, each time we decide not to get back at them, even if we have the opportunity, and each time we decide to pray for them instead of wishing something bad to happen to them, we pay a little bit more of that emotional debt. And eventually, the emotional debt is paid, and it no longer has a hold on us. So now, for those of us that are Christians, how does the gospel make it easier to forgive? Well, here's where it starts. In order for us to be bitter, we have to feel better than the person that wronged us. When someone wronged us and we start to get bitter, we automatically start thinking of ways that we're not like that person, right? We start thinking about how we would never do something like they did. And we continually are looking for more and more ways to confirm to ourselves how we're nothing like that person. So what we do is we blow up their worst traits as big as we can, so that way it's easier for us to feel better than them. But the gospel doesn't allow for that. According to the gospel, all of us, Christians and non-Christians alike, are all connected, not by how good we are, but by our mess ups and our faults. Remember the Sermon on the Mount. Some of the religious people of the day thought that they were good because they never committed adultery or murder. And what did Jesus say? He said that if you've looked at a woman with lust, you've committed adultery in your heart. Jesus was bringing them back to earth, reminding them that those same seeds that lead to evil actions are in each one of us. We're all connected by our need for a savior. So with this in mind, we can remind ourselves of how we're connected by our similarities with the person who wronged us rather than our differences. So instead of seeing them by looking at how different we are, we look at them and we understand what it's like to make mistakes. We understand what it's like to need forgiveness. We understand what it's like to do dumb things. We understand what it's like to hurt people that we love and care about. And we understand what it's like to hurt those who love us. We understand what it's like to be selfish and so on, because we've done all those things towards God. And lastly, Christ gave us the ultimate example of forgiveness. At the heart of Christianity is Jesus Christ, a person who did not retaliate to those who wronged him, although he could have. When Peter pulled out the sword in defense of Jesus, he told Peter, put the sword away. And as Jesus' enemies were literally torturing him to death, he didn't seek revenge. Instead, he said, Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing. So instead of wishing the worst for them, he wished the best for them.
I want the best for you.
So instead of cursing them, using his powers to harm them, or having his disciples defend them, instead, and as his enemies were literally murdering them, he was praying for their forgiveness.
I can speak for myself. I forgive you.
So all in all, the more we realize how much we've been forgiven, the more we realize that we didn't get what we deserved because Christ paid it for us. And because we're saved due to that free and unearned gift that Christ has given us, we have the strength and the freedom to do the same for others. We can now forgive others by absorbing that debt that they took from us, just as Christ did for us.
I don't even want you to go to jail.
So the next time you start to forget just how much you've been forgiven, what are you going to say? What do you mean?